Hello and namaste. I'm Devina Gupta and you're on Work Life India on the BBC. We are at the India Economic Summit, which is being organized by the World Economic Forum and also the Confederation of the Indian Industries. Indian government is also pushing for more and more scientists to take the lead. Are we leaving women scientists behind? So we are asking, what's holding women back in the field of science? Well, to talk about the entire arena that's open for women and the potential that they have to make sure that India can take the giant tech leap and leave the mark on the world, we have some exceptional voices with us today. And let me start by introducing them. We have Sabine Klauke, who is joining us. Sabine has been head of engineering of one of the leading aviation companies, Airbus, for the defense and space vertical. You've been working in France, Sabine, isn't it? And these are two rare combinations for somebody who gave up gymnastics at a very young age and took up soccer to be playing with boys.
Yes, actually, that's right. I have been playing soccer, and that was maybe part of the things which made it for me. I had the privilege to be brought up in total equality. I had a bigger brother, and I was just always following him. And the second thing which maybe made it was, yes, we moved house quite a lot of times, and then I was always different. And I put it always on this. Maybe there was something else as well.
Well, we'll talk all about that, but welcome. We also have Dr. Ruchi Saxena. She is Director of India Flying Labs. She works with drones, and drones in a sector which needs it the most, which is the India's healthcare sector. You're trying to bridge the gap between the medical needs at the grassroots levels in India with technology.
Exactly, Devina. So this has been the story of my life. I started off as a doctor, but within a year, I was pulled out of my clinic and put into datamatics to work with the software engineers because I had some perspectives and they were developing a system. So they said, why don't you work with the software engineers and tell them what exactly the doctors and the patients want? So that's where my combination of the medical and the engineering began.
We also have Sarah Zhang. She is from China. She's founder and CEO of Points Technology, which provides block-based solution and confidential computation in banks and other financial services. And Sarah, tell me if this is wrong. You actually started your first website when you were 16 years old.
Yes, I had my personal website then. Yeah, I've always been very interested in new science and technology. My father is an engineer in terms of training, so he always broke it down about what's the approach to solve problems, and that gave me the lens of seeing how to tackle some of the challenges in life as well. Yeah.
Tackle challenges in life with science. I like that, actually. I'm a science student myself, but journalism got better out of me for the record here. We also have Pritika Mehta. I think you're the youngest in this panel, Pritika, 27-year-old. She's a bright coder. You actually loved maths.
Yes, definitely. Maths was my first love, and I knew if I want to be successful, I need to do something that is, choose a career in maths. And that is how I got introduced to coding, and I started coding when I was 14. And I just loved, that with just a computer, I could create things with maths, coding, and I was a painter as well. And I always wanted to create things, and that is the reason why I chose computer science.
I don't like maths at all, and that's been my reckoning in life, I guess. But hey, here we are. All right, so let me start by asking, globally, there are about 30% of women who are scientific researchers, globally. India, that number comes down to 14%. So Sabine, am I right in saying that there is a challenge for women when they want to step out and pursue this field?
I think, first of all, everybody has that challenge, but for women, I think there is a lot of social binary, which is still set, and I think even I always felt it normal what I did, and I only learned over time that maybe I was a bit privileged maybe in thinking this. But it was normal for me to do what I wanted to do, so I did it. And I never had a big problem with this. But if I'm seeing now the generations, and I have a small child as well, how the subtle setting in the society is still there. And the ways we play, the ways we set norms. I think there is a challenge, and it's maybe even more there because it's this subtlety.
There is actually a challenge if it also seen in different cultural contexts, I feel. In India, for example, Ruchi, you were mentioning, you wanted to be an aeronautical engineer.
Yeah.
But why didn't you pursue your dream?
The protectiveness of the parents, it kind of keeps you. And when I was I wanted to make flying cars even back then, right? Since 6th standard,
Flying
I
cars.
had this in my mind. I
Wow.
want to make flying car, something which can be parked in my garage. And I used to discuss it with the whole world. This is what I want to do. When the time came, I got just the right marks to get into that college. But the college was in Missouri, and my mom was like, why Himalayas and the cold and the temperatures there, and you're not used to it, and you will not be comfortable. And so there was not a permission to go beyond it.
Would it have been different if you were a boy?
I guess yes, because my brother went to a hostel, I never went.
Well, Sarah, is this similar in China? Is there a discrimination that families subconsciously or consciously do practice, which is holding women back?
So it's interesting because I was born and raised in Shanghai. Shanghai is the city in China where men are supposed to do the housework. So, so things really have changed a lot. I think something has to do with mandatory education system for sure, and also there is an element of the consequence of the one-child policy as well. Because in my generation, every household only have one kid. No matter if you're a girl or boy, you are required to go to school for 9 years, and it's very strictly implemented. A lot of the school system is focusing on standardized tests. So even if there is some level of assumptions, maybe male are better at science and engineering, but when the grades come out, it's very loud and clear. Objectively, some of the girls are ranking top of the class.
But let me add to that a data from UNESCO, actually, which was compiled between 2014 and 16, says that only 30% of female students around the world select STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and maths. Field of higher education, maths and stats, have only 5% women. And Pritika, what is it that stops women from choosing these fields? Because you were the one who liked it, but your peers actually did not. So what is it that is an initial hesitancy in the mind? And is it also because of certain gender stereotyping that we see in our society?
Yes. So when it comes to machine learning, it is a comparatively newer field, and when it comes to careers for girls, I would say majority of the households they always want to have a safe career. In India, women opting for being a doctor or a teacher is considered a safer option, as in what I have heard in the society is it would be easier for you to find a groom, and the acceptance in the society will be higher. This is the real truth. This is what.
Let's take a sample from the audience, because I could hear some muffling around there, clearly from the men's side. But do you feel this is actually true in India, that women are often persuaded when they are girls to take careers, as Pritika said, which are safer, so that they can find a groom? Yes.
Well, I'll corroborate that I know when I was in grade 9 and I filled in my form, we were asked to choose at that time between a science stream or a humanities, and I filled in science. And my father tore the form, saying that no, girls don't take science. And in terms of safer, I think what he meant, even doctor, that it takes too long and it will be too late for you to get married. So what actually happens in India is that marriage is the big god, which will determine what girls can do or cannot do. This is not a decision they take.
Yes? Okay, the lady in the front. Yes. Ma'am, please tell us.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kalyani. I don't think this parity is existing even outside science. I think it's across. Okay, and it's also the proverbial glass ceiling does exist. Like, for example, I've taken a sabbatical for 9 years. So whenever I go back, a female HR consultant says, was it your maternity break? I said, no, I've had 2 kids, but this is a very informed decision that I want to be with my children while they are growing up. That's not recognized as a valid reason for you to take a break. So one is pay, the other is when you're
Taking a
returning
break.
professionals, they're not taking it very seriously.
Sarah, is this similar to when you are planning a child, and if they are these sort of, is it a norm in China as well that you expect the woman to perhaps sacrifice a career for a child, or is the system more accommodating?
So I think, as a matter of fact, women spend more time taking care of their babies in general. But I think in society there's a lot more discussions around how to more evenly balance the workload. Some of the companies, for example, Google in China, they actually give men 3 months paid paternity leave when their wife starts to have babies. So having paternity leave actually gives the equal opportunity to enjoy the benefits and learn how to take care of the baby together. And also it's very rewarding for both men and women. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to focus a little bit on the pay gap aspect that you mentioned, because according to the World Economic Forum report itself, it's going to take 108 years to bridge that for women and men in any field, as you rightly said. There is a campaign right now in the UK where 100 business women have come together. They're calling it Me Too Pay, which means that they're demanding equal pay. What's the situation in the science field? Sabine, is there a pay gap in the field that you're in?
No, I think objectively there is one. I mean, for me personally, I cannot say, yes, I'm less paid than my colleagues. I cannot at all tell it. But objectively, we do actually do statistics. And this is basically, we take an average pay, and the gap is existing.
Ruchi, tell me, what about role models? Because when we actually see even portrayal of women scientists in the mainstream media, it's a very stereotypical portrayal of somebody who's wearing specs, somebody who's, you know, a little geeky, as the word is used again. But how can we ensure more role models?
So creating role models is from the community itself. So once you train a girl from the community, she takes over and trains 100 more girls. This is the model we should go. Instead of, we can just start it, we can initiate it, we can be the catalyst of it, but then it should be them who take it
So
forward.
women supporting women. Pritika, you actually train coders and you do a program for encouraging girl coders. Is there a reception of this idea within the community in India as well?
In India, when you speak of the urban India, yes, parents are, they encourage their daughters to go out and learn these new things because they think they can make careers out of it. In India, yes, new parents, they are very receptive of this and they are encouraging.
Okay.
Yeah.
A question to everybody here. There's always been a talk of affirmative action as well. In our premier institute in India, the Indian Institute of Technology, only 10% women applicants, and those who are enrolled are women. Only 10%. So there's an idea that you could have additional quota for girls. Does this idea of affirmative action in our educational institutions work? Yes, the lady with a green shirt, please, in the front. Thank you.
So I work in educating girls on in STEM education in tribal areas, and have a report where children don't know about existing women scientists as well. And because they say that they don't have it in their textbook. So rather than the quotas giving specially for girls, we need to educate both boys and girls about all the Indian women scientists, or like overall in general, and give them a role model. So more outreach programs rather than giving a quota, because again it will lead to an indifferential imbalance in the system.
It's very interesting what you're doing in rural India. And when you speak to these parents of these girls, are they willing to participate? And what's the challenge in the mindset that you need to change? How can you do that?
The scenario in urban area is very balanced, but when we go to tribal or semi-urban or rural areas, we face challenges like they don't want girls to come to science classes because they think that it is not relevant to them. I have a school asking for donation of sewing machine rather than developing a lab.
Sabine, where does it all start, and how do you ensure that girls are studying science and women are getting equal opportunities?
You've seen that in the age of 8 to 10, this is actually where everybody starts to do dreams. And this is where we try to be with the school. So we have a program where every week we have one class from school coming into our premises, in our headquarters in Munich, and they are doing like informatics work, doing some real mechanics work. And this is how we actually try to bring the girls into this interest, because it's exactly in this age that it's specifically good.
Yes, we have actually a gentleman at the back, because it's supposed to be a gender equity, so I don't want to leave the boys and men behind. Please.
So actually in Sri Lanka, this percentage that you talk about is very different. We have now females surpassing the male percentage in the number of graduates across all state universities. Now it's bordering almost towards 60%, which is really impressive. But then the problem lies when you go to the workforce, you don't really see all of those exceptional graduates. It's not just selection quotas. You should also, I mean, I think there should be also a lot of work done towards the enthusiasm shown. And also it may come through the empowering process, as you've rightly spoken, but also to make sure that girls who are qualified are confident enough to make those choices to take it to the next level of their career.
I'll put this to the panel. Sarah?
I actually think it's okay to increase the quota, and I think you should, for two reasons. One, engineering, they can be taught and learned. It's not rocket science. With proper practice, you can learn math, okay? So increasing the quota will not lead to like educating a lot of people who cannot do the job. Two, digital divide is so important. Tech is going to be the highest paying jobs in India, I believe. So improving the gender equality by providing more supply to the workforce is very critical from the beginning.
All right, thank you.
I really like to
So, yes,
come to
Sabine.
this as well.
Yes.
Then, because for sure, in a big company like ours, we have that discussion for long, and we had it for long. Do we put quota, yes or no? Us, the women first, were all against it, because we said, no, we want to be loved because we do our things, and we want to have the positions because we have done our work. So then, at least my opinion evolved, and actually we evolved. Then we put a first quota on. We said for each executive or managerial job, we put at least one woman in the shortlist. Then first of all, HR said, oh, we don't have any. But this evolved very quickly, and all of a sudden, we do have people there, and then we manage as well to choose them when they are good. Yeah, we still choose on the criteria, but we help visibility. So this helped, and by that, I think we came to a point as well where we said, yes, quota in a phase needs to be there really to pull it and to push it.
Okay, a quick dip poll here. Yes, I'll come to you. A quick dip poll here. How many people feel that there should be an affirmative quota for women in universities and in employments? Yes? Okay. That's really a minority in the room at the moment. So, Sabine, you've got some tough negotiations to do to convince this room at least. Ruchi, perhaps you can take this as well. That is there also an advantage of being a woman scientist?
We women tend to think a bit more on the community empathy side, that, oh, come on, how can you just miss out this community who's living on this edge of your circle? What if there is a woman there who's pregnant and who needs your drone right away? Would you not be sending it? So they're like, oh, come on, it's outside a radius, how can we do that? So we tend to kind of think the way we think. I mean, we bring in our maternal instincts, our caring instincts, our love and our care. But I don't know if it's just individualistic or if it's about across the way the men.
I want to throw it open to the audience. Yes, the lady in the black there, please. Any more solutions?
The thing that you said, Ruchi, you spoke about how you didn't go to college because the hostel was bad. I think quotas are great, but quotas, no matter what you do, there's still going to be brain drain. I went abroad to study because there's not enough infrastructure here to support me. So hostel, safety. Why did I go to Singapore? It's because it's safe. There's a place for me to stay in a hostel. So if the government or if the corporates could actually develop the infrastructure as well in these colleges, then maybe an IIT will see more women there.
The Indian Institute of Technology is what you say. Pritika, you have a point because you actually went to the US for your higher studies.
When you look at the, the amount of money spent on research in India, it is, to be honest, nothing. There is no reward there was no reward for me to pursue my research or master's here. So America was my first option. And just like me, there are millions of Indians, who choose America, Germany, or any Western nation to pursue research. Because the government or, we do not have the ecosystem where research is rewarded, where we see an outcome of our research. So yes.
So government policies, intervention is needed. Sarah, how do you feel about that? Are there more opportunities in China for women researchers, funding which is easily available, infrastructure if they want to pursue their interest?
I think my understanding is that it's primarily merit-based. Oh, of course, there will be, as any professions, when you progress to tenure and become a senior researcher, there will be more. There are still more men than women who are in the senior positions.
On topic of that, according to a recent research by UK's Intellectual Property Office, women inventors account for just under 13% of patent applications. Sometimes it's called a Matilda effect. Now, a Matilda effect is when you do not get credit which is due to you. And are women suffering from Matilda effect, Sabine, in terms of getting grants, research, money? Should there be more accessible? Does government need to do more?
I think what is really changing now is consciousness on the one side, but then as well, it's really the society. The hunger is there in the younger generations, and I'm mentoring one of our female talents here in India. I'm mentoring as well a man, not exactly the same generation, but there is such a hunger and ambition, and this is really making the difference. So I don't think we have to put it to the government. Yes, there needs to be some help, but it's now coming from the society as well. And then
okay. And as I wrap up this session, what advice would you give to a woman who is starting in your position when you were young and wants to reach your position where you are right now?
So it's just do your way, do it, do whatever you are liking, what your heart is at, and don't ask other questions.
All right. What about you, Ruchi? How can women pursue their interest in science given our cultural context in India? Because a lot of times you're fighting these battles not with external but your own immediate family members. How do you convince them?
I would just say that be fearless. That's very, very important. The confidence comes automatically once your fears are out of your way. And in case your upbringing or your cultural conditioning is forcing you to be fearful, then step out of the culture. I mean, it's important. Break the barriers, step out if you need to, but then you have to follow your goals very, very clearly.
All right. And Sarah, innovation at the crux of it is about inventing something new, an idea that doesn't let you sleep, and you're waking up to it every moment to make it possible. How do you overcome the real barriers of financials, for example?
Over the past year, the amount of money raised by VC themselves year on year, this year compared to last year is minus 90%. So it's a very, very difficult situation back home. But
so where do you go?
You still go back to them. You just keep trying.
You keep trying, and the probability is higher.
The compounded growth rate, the probability is very high. If it is 50-50 success failure, you keep trying. Upon a number of times, it's actually quite high. Use your calculator. So,
well, thanks. And that's an optimistic note. Last word to you, Pritika. How can women help women?
In this context, I would say, being a woman, as I said, you need to continuously fight the system, especially in India where there are cultural norms. So one thing I would say is have the spirit to fight, because this is going to be very rewarding, not only for you, but for millions of other girls if you become a success. I think there is a huge need of such systems, such ecosystem where women can talk to other women and share their stories, because the challenges we face in the workforce is very different from what our male counterparts face. So having such systems, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you for being a wonderful audience and taking part in all our questions. Well, I can just say this, that when it comes to India's innovation, the big tech leap, the untapped potential of the women power that we witnessed today on this panel is just a minuscule part. There is a lot more that the half of the population can contribute in realizing the dream to make India an innovation hub. And all across the world as well, women scientists who are struggling hard, the words of inspiration heard here, I hope that you're hearing them as well and they inspire you. Thank you so much for being with us.